Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Okay, so I told Melkor and the fellas that I would stick to a strict schedule today. And I would just do my unfinished series, and then we can get right into Caesar. But I'm doing this anyway because I want to do it. Let's do it! Original video at the top, bottom, top, down there, top of the description below. Join the Discord. Join the Discord. Join it. A lot of fun over there. Sometimes there's brownies. Yeah, alright, join.
In late August of the year 410, a Visigothic king, Alaric, conquered and sacked the city of Rome. This was the first time in 800 years that the Eternal City had been taken by an enemy, and it came as a shock to the Romans, their friends, and their enemies alike. Most histories focus on the Roman Empire itself, and only speak of the Goths as an invasive force to that civilization, but they have a long and exciting history of their own. From their beginnings in the cold northlands of Scandinavia to ruling a significant portion of post-Roman Europe, the story of the Eastern Germanic Goths is one that must be told. How did they emerge and become so powerful that they were able...
I should have grabbed my water.
...to take Rome, be told? How did they emerge and...
Sorry, just making sure everything is going right. Oh, guys, this is Blucher right here, sorry. Where are my manners? He's watching this with us.
...become so powerful that they were able to take Rome? Welcome to our video on the history of the Goths in the era of late antiquity. With sedentary work like ours, it's often difficult to maintain good habits. 5 minutes and time.
I wish I had a...
habits that specific need. A team of 5 overcome the barriers that prevent them from transform your life for the better in your ideal daily routine. The first 25%.
I'm actually kind of curious to look at that, but alright, let's go.
The original homeland of the Gothic tribes is still up for debate, but it is widely believed that they first came from the Gotland region in the south of modern-day Sweden. Whether because of overpopulation, natural disasters, or resource shortages, various Germanic tribes, including the Goths, gradually began migrating south into modern-day Eastern Europe. Rome had its first terrifying encounter with the Germans during the Cimbrian War, when groups of Teutones, Ambrones, and Cimbri from modern-day Denmark...
Just for those of you who are new to my channel, obviously subscribe, but just giving you a heads up, I do want to, make this fun environment and everything, but I am really eager to learn. This is something I don't know much about, and I'm getting into Rome and Caesar soon. And I might just not talk as much this episode, which might be a good thing. And I will rewind a few seconds if I miss something, just letting you know.
Invaded Italy. These Ambrones and Cimbri from modern-day Denmark invaded Italy. The Goths, however, migrated further east at first and did not immediately interact with the empire to the south. They had a bilateral family structure based on intermarriage and gift-giving, and these gifts from tribal leaders to other tribal contingents would be repaid by allegiance to the gift-giver. These customs began to extend familial relationships to slowly bring larger Gothic groups together. Later, when their military conflicts against Rome occurred, these informal and temporary large groups would gel together on a more permanent basis, one of the reasons the Goths became so powerful as to rival the Empire. The Goths' first recorded attack on the Empire took place during the crisis of the 3rd century in the year 238, when they sacked Histria on the Black Sea coast. They were only repelled by a substantial subsidy from the Emperor. This did not end the problem. From 249 to 268, there were constant high-intensity Gothic...
What are these rivers that are emptying? This doesn't seem like a very long one here. So this is Crimea here. Sea of... Is that the Azov? I know this is a big river. I'm blanking on the name. Sorry. I like to figure out the geography.
From the Emperor. This did not end the problem. From 249 to 268, there were constant high-intensity Gothic raids over land and sea into the Black Sea region, the Balkans, Thrace, Asia Minor and Greece, which continued until twin Roman victories in 268 near Greece and 270 at Nisus stopped their attacks for the time being. The reasons for these initial attacks are debated as well, but it is probable that the internal instability of the empire during the 200s played a key part. As civil war rocked the Roman world, the Goths would likely have seen the opportunity to take advantage and began to raid the vulnerable empire for plunder. A cycle would emerge, whereby internal revolt would inspire barbarian attacks, and when the emperor went to deal with the barbarians, more internal revolt would occur.
That's what's so great about the United States geography, is that there's a common saying like, thank God for the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. We have pretty kind of weaker countries and more friendly countries to the north and south. We have, obviously, Canada, which is pretty much America's scratch that. Is pretty much like America's twin. Let's put it that way. And you have the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, and so even when like times like now, there's a lot of internal strife. There's not so much of a possibility for others to kind of capitalize on that.
First appeared as raiders, they could not present, and when the emperor went to deal with the barbarians, more internal revolt would occur. Though the Goths first appeared as raiders, they could not present a clear existential threat to the empire. So how did they eventually sack the Eternal City? The increasingly close proximity of the Gothic tribes to the Roman Empire, and especially its military, began to have a profound impact on the increasing strength of barbarian invaders. Many Goths who served in the Roman army became entirely acclimatized to a Roman way of life, some of which would then return home, bringing Roman habits, ways of training, organization, and money along with them. As the 3rd century turned into the 4th, Gothic interconnectedness with the Roman Empire became ever greater, along with bouts of violence which would occasionally flare up between the two factions. Roman emperors increasingly adopted policies designed to cut down barbarian strength before it materialized by launching punitive raids into their territory. This gave the barbarian Gothic leaders further east every incentive to become more competent militarily in order to defend their families and homes. In addition, divide and conquer strategies resulted in the subsidizing of some Gothic kings, which built up their royal prestige and governing capacity. Some evidence exists to suggest that the Tetrarchy of Diocletian supported and approved of building Thervingian Gothic strength and territorial gains at the mouth of the Danube, at the expense of other barbarian groups in the area, such as the Carpi. This was perhaps because the Goths were viewed as reliable and could function as another layer
Wait, that's the Danube? I thought the Danube was more Central Europe. Sorry.
Imperial barbarian groups in the area, such as the Carpi. This was perhaps because the Goths were viewed as reliable and could function as another layer of imperial defense on the turbulent Danubian border. However, raising the status of these barbarian leaders above others provided them with the strength for military action against their Roman benefactors, something which otherwise could not be accomplished. In these ways, Rome's attitude and actions towards the barbarians only made them stronger and more like themselves. The result of this is shown in 320, when the Thervingi re-emerge in the sources far more powerfully than before.
That's cool. I noticed that with the Napoleonic Wars too, how your against a certain enemy, your advantage, say you have a tactical advantage like Napoleon did over his enemies, it's only so its value really goes down the more you fight your enemy, because they learn, not only can they adapt some of your good strategies, but they learn how you kind of work and learn how your marshals or generals work. And so it's not always effective as the first time when they don't really know your fighting style.
Likely because of their imperial sponsorship, more powerfully than before. Likely because of their imperial sponsorship, the Thavingi became the undisputed masters of the Lower Danube and the abandoned Roman province of Dacia. These more powerful Thavingi Goths were then attacked by an alarmed Constantine in the 320s and 330s, fearing the increase of their power. Likely beginning gradually in the 350s, a chain of events would come to pass which would result in the beginning of the end for Rome. In the east, a new powerful force began to emerge, the nomadic Huns. What happened is debated, but it seems like the Hunnic threat drove unstoppably but gradually west, first defeating and subjugating the Alans, who together then defeated the powerful Greuthungi Gothic king, Alaric, in the mid-370s.
What is it about the word Huns that just makes like these giant loud drums just play in my mind? Like, I just hear Huns and it's like boom, 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 fear, terror, you're dead.
It is widely speculated King Alaric in the mid-370s. It is widely speculated that the Greuthungi Goths
Join the Discord. Join the Discord. Join it. It's a lot of fun. Melkor brings brownies. You know, it's a lot of fun.
Behind and became Hunnic subjects were the future Ostrogoths, while the Gothic refugees, mainly Thavingi but some Greuthungi, would come together as the Visigoths. Following this disaster, a massive contingent of Gothic refugees then streamed west towards the Danube border, hoping to escape their pursuers. Their leader, a Visigoth Thavingi Goth named Fritigern, petitioned to be allowed peacefully into the empire. The Romans accepted, but
see, this is what happens. I missed something because I was talking.
Thavingi were the that the Greuthungi Goths who stayed 370s.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It is widely speculated that the Greuthungi Goths who stayed behind and became Hunnic subjects were the future Ostrogoths, while the Gothic refugees, mainly Thavingi but some Greuthungi, would come together as the Visigoths. Following
see how
this
important that was that I just glossed over and I would have never...
disaster, a massive contingent of Gothic refugees then streamed west towards the Danube border, hoping to escape their pursuers. Their leader, a Visigoth Thavingi Goth named Fritigern, petitioned to be allowed peacefully into the empire. The Romans accepted, but corrupt officials abused the Goths militarily and by limiting their food supplies caused unrest among the new arrivals. After being invited to a banquet by a Roman governor, Fritigern was betrayed by his hosts, but managed to escape and decided to revolt against this appalling treatment. Barbarian units in the Thracian army joined him, as well as Gothic slaves in the provinces where the rebellion was strongest. In August 378, Fritigern's Gothic army obliterated Valens and his legions at the Battle of Adrianople, and 2/3 of the Eastern Field Army was killed. In the aftermath, manpower shortages would ensure that the reliance on barbarian, prominently Gothic soldiers would continue until the end of the
So I'm about to get an ad here. Someone said get an ad blocker. It'll save your life. I forget who it was. How do I get that? What is it?
Empire.
I know.
Ooh, this is actually a great commercial.
I don't want to move either, kid.
I'm not going to watch it, but it actually is pretty clever.
When Theodosius I became continue until the end of the empire. When Theodosius I became emperor in 379 after the death of Valens, the manpower situation for the Romans was critical. The new emperor needed victories against the Goths after Adrianople, and he began to slowly clear Thrace and other Roman territories of the invaders, driving them away from Constantinople and into Illyricum. Participating in this campaign was a general called Moderes, who was himself a Goth in imperial service, which shows the potentially high levels a barbarian could reach within the imperial structure even in the late 300s. Despite these successes, continued Gothic pressure eventually forced Theodosius to give up his attempts, and Gothic contingents were allowed to settle in Thrace and the Balkans, becoming sedentary as the Romans were, and increasingly joining the Roman military in the decades afterwards. Also increasing were the amount of Gothic nobility becoming officers and generals in the Roman army, including the aforementioned Moderes. Two other barbarian nobles who became imperial commanders were Frevita and Eriulf, the latter of which was killed in a drunken brawl by the former. He had an illustrious career after this incident, married a Roman bride, and crushed a mutiny led by Gaius, another Gothic general. All of these men illustrate a sudden influx of skillful and important Gothic leaders into the imperial hierarchy. A far more significant figure, however, was Alaric. The origin of Alaric is shrouded in mystery.
Oh, look at him. That is just a Viking's Viking right there.
But the first notable event of his life seems to be the Battle of the Frigidus River in 394, between the Eastern Emperor Theodosius I and the usurper Eugenius. The battle was unusually bloody.
I can just see comments now. He's not technically a Viking, or I'm just sorry.
The Battle of the Frigidus River in 394, between the Eastern Emperor Theodosius I and the usurper Eugenius. The battle was unusually bloody for all combatants, but the Gothic and other barbarian units under Alaric suffered massive losses after they were placed in the front ranks so that they would absorb most of the damage. It is not known, but it is possible that Theodosius purposefully did this so that after the battle, the Goths would be diminished compared to the rest of his army. In 395, Alaric grew...
You guys ever wonder about the physical shape that these people were in? I mean, just by walking all the time and carrying that heavy stuff, you had to be pretty damn strong. Tangent.
Purposefully did this so that after the battle, the Goths would be diminished compared to the rest of his army. In 395, Alaric grew angry at the lack of imperial generosity which followed the victory at Frigidus, a victory which he believed he won for Theodosius. When en route to the Balkans, Alaric revolted in the same manner as Fritigern, and was increasingly joined by more Gothic settlers and units who saw the rebellion as a way to better their conditions. Being unable to attack Constantinople, Alaric's army raided easier targets in Macedon and Greece until he was given a position of command, possibly Magister Militum of the province of Illyricum. Western regent Stilicho, who was also a barbarian of Gothic origin, had come to deal with Alaric, but the Eastern Roman court was hostile to the Western one at this time and gave Alaric the...
So where does the term barbarian come from? I might be wrong, but I heard it was because, like, it's kind of like that's what they sounded like bar, 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 bar. And I think I heard that on a different YouTube video. And so just barbarians, I'm not sure.
Position to weaken Stilicho. Late in 401, however, Alaric, no longer regarding the Eastern Empire as a reliable negotiating partner, invaded Italy over the Julian Alps. He didn't succeed, however, and gave Alaric the position to weaken Stilicho in the Alps. He didn't negotiating partner, invaded Italy over the Julian Alps. He didn't succeed on this attempt, as Stilicho returned and halted the advance after winning a few small battles, so Alaric retreated back into the Balkans. In 405, wanting to placate the still dangerous Alaric, the empire gave him the position of Magister Militum again. Again in 407, Alaric attacked Italy, wanting greater plunder in fresh lands, demanding 4,000 pounds of gold to dissuade him, which Stilicho gave. The Roman aristocracy, who had to bear a part of the cost for paying this bribe, were dissatisfied and convinced Western Emperor Honorius to kill Stilicho and the families of thousands of his Gothic auxiliaries, whose men promptly joined Alaric. After marching directly down the Italian peninsula to Rome, where Gothic slaves swelled his forces, Alaric besieged the Eternal City during the winter of 408 and 409. Over the next 2 years, negotiations between the Goths and Romans broke down, and in August of 410, Alaric's Goths sacked the city for the first time since Brennus had in 390 BC. They stripped Rome of centuries' worth of wealth, but for Alaric this was a failure rather than a victory. Everything he and other Gothic leaders had fought for were up in flames. Imperial office for himself and a legitimate place for his people inside the prosperous civilized empire.
Interesting. So he's kind of like, wait. Yeah, we're conquering this place, but why burn it all down? Let's use it.
Were both now out of reach, and he would never be given Rome by right. This monumental sacking of Rome did not last Alaric long, as before 410 was over, Alaric passed away. In the next century, the Goths were no longer the products and victims of Roman history, and they now made Rome's history themselves. The western branch of the Goths, the Visigoths, eventually settled in Hispania and forged a kingdom for themselves there, eventually falling to the invading Umayyad Caliphate in the early 700s.
This is why I love doing this. I love learning with you guys. Don't get me wrong. I love you guys. You're great. You really are. But the main thing is me learning. Okay. I love you guys. Don't get me, you guys are great. If you're not subscribed, join. Get on that Discord especially. But just how every now and then in these videos, it doesn't happen every video, you know, a moment like this, but when it does, wow, it makes all of this stuff so worth it. It's just, it's kind of just like, ooh, so this is what happened here after the Roman Empire. It's just connecting all of these things that in the end, I hope I can do with a giant timeline in world history and have a general idea of how certain areas not got populated, but just how certain people settled where, and how how empires formed out of other empires. I love it so much.
Meanwhile, the Ostrogoths,
probably didn't even make sense
who
there,
had
but I
been
hope
freed from Hunnic dominion after their defeat at the Battle of Nidau in 454, 700s. Meanwhile, the Ostrogoths, who had been freed from Hunnic dominion after their defeat at the Battle of Nidau in 454, eventually established the Ostrogothic kingdom in Italy under Theodoric the Great, which fell to the remnant of the Roman Empire under Justinian in the mid-500s.
And then the Byzantine.
The reputation of the Goths in popular imagination is almost synonymous with barbarian and savage, their name ever sullied by their infamous sacking of the Eternal City. But as shown in this video, they were far more complex. They reacted to Roman violence with violence of their own, eventually learning from their settled counterparts and eventually succeeding them. In contrast to the savage reputation of their name, the Gothic leaders Alaric and Fritigern seemed to genuinely care about the fate of their people, whereas the Romans during this time treated the Goths and other barbarians in a repulsive manner. But neither Rome nor the Goths were good or evil, and all were reacting to the situations in which they were placed, a phenomenon which led the Goths from small tribal
That right there is such an important. I always say, a lot of the times I say hindsight is 20/20, and I think that's important when learning about history. But this is equally, maybe the most important thing that I want to make sure people know I understand is this.
Nor the Goths, other barbarians.
Not just these, but just of all peoples. Whether it comes to my really popular Russian, me reacting to that Russian, you know, why should we apologize or whatever, has like over 30,000 views or something. And a lot of likes. And I went into there. You have to realize that, take yourself out of your own kind of country's shoes and realize that no one is purely good or purely evil. Everyone has bad spots. Some may be worse than others, but we need to realize that no one is pure evil. Everyone is looking after their own country, and history can be misleading, and it's very important to know that and look out for it.
In a repulsive manner. But neither Rome nor the Goths were good or evil, and all were reacting to the situations in which they were placed, a phenomenon which led the Goths from small tribal bands to rulers of great kingdoms. More videos on Germanic and Roman history are on the way.
Such a good channel. I can't wait to get into the Caesar stuff.
Subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see the next video in the series.
I do have the bell button hit.
Liking, commenting, and sharing. It helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube.
Awesome video. Awesome. Sorry, guys on Discord. My marshal's going to get angry that I didn't stick to the schedule, but There is no but. I just felt like doing it, guys. All right. See you next time.